This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Dramatic testimony to the United States Congress today speculating about possible terror attacks in this country by Colombian cocaine cartel criminals. Testimony from a witness who used to work for them. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver has our report.
For security reasons, Diego Villafara, a former operative in the Colombian drug cartel, testified from behind a screen. Speaking through a translator, he made a frightening prediction that the same kinds of hit squads that assassinated Colombian presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán could soon be targeting United States officials.
Some of you may be the victims of attempts or attacks. Maybe the President of the United States would be a victim of the actions of drug traffickers. We're all going to be witnesses. We're just getting started.
And Villafara said the drug lords are now training killers as young as 15.
Those people that are not good at killing are to be killed.
Another witness, David Wheeler, a former drug trafficker who now works undercover for the U.S., downplayed the idea of hits on American officials, saying that the cartel is smart enough not to directly take on the U.S. But he said that the cartel has sophisticated plans for evading the U.S. drug crackdown, shipments via Mexico.
Right now, they're contemplating buying land on both sides of the border and simply tunneling under the border, using the tunnel for a month, and then selling both pieces of property and moving on to the next tunnel.
And Wheeler said that the drug lords are so confident of their invulnerability that they're secretly buying up property in Montana to store cocaine right here in the USA. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
Underscoring how far, how wide, how deep, and how outrageous the menace from the drug scum runs and how hard it is to fight, correspondent Martha Teichner reports tonight from the back roads and bushes in South America, where U.S. drug enforcement and Border Patrol agents are literally risking fast death in Bolivia's cocaine country.
Finally, at dawn, the sound they've been crouched in the jungle all night to hear. The ambush. Agents of the DEA and Border Patrol assisting Bolivia's narcotics police. Just as their informant predicted, coca paste, the basic ingredient of cocaine, is moving along this road to market. The truck they seize is loaded. Minutes later, another truck full of paste drives straight into the roadblock.
Gracias. Gracias. Taking off the paste itself makes you feel pretty good, because that's one less kilo that my other fellow agents up in the United States have to take off in the streets.
But the morning's biggest catch is a money man, a paste buyer with 73,000 US dollars cash in a satchel on the front seat. By arresting him, the DEA hits a major trafficking organization where it hurts.
We basically, in some places, actually attack them in the hope that they cannot function. The bottom line is that if there's any analogy that's going to be made, is that we are the guerrillas.
About a dozen men, that's it on this operation, fighting the war on drugs here in the hostile territory of Bolivia's Cocaine Alley. The road is the main route traffickers use to transport paste to airstrips on its way to processing labs. Before long, it is lined up with the kind of pickup trucks people in this part of Bolivia can't afford unless they're in drugs. It's time to clear out, but one of the prisoners has agreed to cooperate, leading agents through the jungle to the deposito, where paste is dried and stashed.
You could have several divisions, the Army, walking through this jungle, and it'd be blind luck if you ever walked upon this place.
One of the DEA's best days ever in Bolivia. The cash plus 1,000 pounds of paste, worth more than $20 million if it reached the United States as cocaine. For delivering this haul, the informant will be paid $5,000. But now, the problem is getting it out. Today's haul may be a major victory for the DEA, but along Cocaine Alley, where cocaine supports just about everybody in one way or another, it's the kind of loss that is not taken lightly. The only getaway route is right into Ataramazama, the cocaine capital of the region. Over a radio captured in the raid, the agents hear drug traffickers organizing the town against them, offering to pay people to blow up the trucks and recapture the dope. When they reach Mazama, the whole town is waiting for them, armed with sticks of dynamite. The Bolivian narcotics police move in on foot, shooting into the air to back off the crowd. Finally, the convoy lurches down the dusty main street. The paste and the prisoners are in the truck with the tarp over it to keep them hidden and to deflect the dynamite. A prisoner breaks free, but nobody has time to stop him. The soldiers are more concerned about just getting themselves and the trucks through town. The mob spills back into the street, jeering and whistling, as the last soldiers dash for safety. The convoy is safe once more, but the new message on the traffickers' radio? From now on, the reward for killing one of the Americans is up to $15,000. Martha Teichner, CBS News, at Mazama, Bolivia.
Indications are growing tonight that President Bush's ideas for fighting drugs are in for big challenges in Congress, challenges about strategy, boldness, and financing. Bob Schieffer is tracking this still unfolding story of drugs and politics, the President and the Congress. Bob, cut through all the political rhetoric for us and tell us what's going on there.
Dan, what's apparently going to happen is that the president's plan is in for a major overhaul. The Senate leadership has agreed that a bipartisan group of senators will work with White House officials and fashion a new plan. There's still wide differences on just what to do, but the Democrats, for once, are unified. They favor a plan that's been outlined by Robert Byrd of West Virginia. It puts as much emphasis on treatment as it does on law enforcement. It also calls for spending about $2 billion more than the president wants. Senator Byrd would do that by an across-the-board 0.5% budget reduction. The White House says that would take too big a bite out of the Pentagon budget. But however the difference is worked out, it now appears the drug program is going to be broader, more expensive than the president envisioned.
Bob Schieffer, thanks. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, correspondent Bob Fall on why drug dealers who get caught get out so soon in our One Nation Under Siege.
How strong is extra strength Tums EX? Heartburn strikes, Tums strikes back. Heartburn's gone that fast. Tums EX, twice as strong, twice as fast as regular Rolaids.
It's your 30th birthday, girl. Is it hard to face the world? But there's Folgers to brew that's decaffeinated too. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mornings brighten with Mountain Grown Folgers decaffeinated. Mountain Grown beans have a more enticing aroma and richer flavor.
You need to feel so blue, that aroma's calling you.
You are finally waking up.
The best part of waking up
is decaffeinated?
It's Folgers in your cup.
You know, 30's not so bad.
Yeah, we're maturing.
Butter starts like this, but can end up like this. So now there's all-natural Butter Buds. It has the same flavor as this, with no cholesterol and virtually no fat. Delicious. New Butter Buds. It's better than butter.
Feel your oats
with Post Oat Flakes.
Feel your oats with Post Oat Flakes. Golden toasted flakes with whole grain oat nutrition and a crunchy oat taste. Feel your oats with Post Oat Flakes.
The white minority government of South Africa backed away from a violent confrontation today and allowed tens of thousands of demonstrators to stage the biggest anti-apartheid rally in the country's history. The march was led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the white mayor of Cape Town. It was illegal under South Africa's state of emergency, and police had threatened to stop it. But acting President F.W. de Klerk intervened last night and said it could proceed as long as it was peaceful. The tide of East Germans fleeing to the west slowed today, but more than 12,000 have now reached West Germany in 3 days since Hungary opened its borders. Another tide of refugees is expected this year from the Soviet Union, which has relaxed its immigration rules. Most of them are Jews, and most want to come to the United States, which has pressured Moscow for years to let more of them out. But now, as correspondent Eric Ingberg reports, President Bush is saying, in effect, he can't afford to let more of them in.
The flood of Soviet Jews and others seeking asylum in the U.S. has grown so much that America is being forced to say no to thousands of them. The administration proposed to Congress today that the ceiling on Soviet refugees, 36,000 this year, be raised to 50,000. But that will still leave thousands stuck inside the Soviet Union or in refugee way stations such as Vienna. Lack of funds for travel and relocation is the reason.
There aren't the dollars available to finance significantly more than 50,000.
A top administration refugee official dismayed congressmen in discussing the plight of thousands of Jewish emigres who have left home but ended up in limbo when U.S. officials denied them refugee status. Her solution:
they can go to Israel. And of course they can always return to Russia. And in these days of glasnost, I don't know that that's an impossible situation.
That touched off a controversy.
That an American official should suggest that a Jew, having left the Soviet Union because they were afraid of persecution, even if the American government doesn't think so, should suggest that they go back to the Soviet Union is astonishing to me.
Congressman said it was the first time an official had suggested that Soviet emigres go back. And members of both parties disagreed with her, saying the U.S. has an obligation to help them get here. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
Marxist rebels fighting the government of El Salvador today offered an indefinite ceasefire in exchange for guarantees on civil rights. That proposal came as the two sides opened peace talks in Mexico City, the first between the rebels and the new right-wing government of Alfredo Cristiani. They're aimed at ending a 10-year-old civil war that has killed an estimated 70,000 Salvadorans.
I told myself I'd live without the villas, or the blue of the sea, or the sun on his arms. Then why was I so glad when he appeared, and we were back in our old cafe, where the coffee tasted rich beyond compare.
Discover decaffeinated rich French roast from Maxwell House. Rich French roast coffee. We can't give you France, but we'll give you the flavor.
This is one of 570 million refund locations for American Express traveler's checks. Now you can get a refund virtually anywhere there's a phone. Only from American Express traveler's checks. So if your bank doesn't carry them, go to one that does.
Sunsweet's been up to something remarkably fresh. A reclosable canister. So Sunsweet pitted prunes stay fresh and moist. That is, for as long as they stay around. Only one prune tastes Sunsweet.
And considering all the people we serve, all the places we go, and all the times we go there, it would take a lot of airlines to be U.S. Air. U.S. Air, America's most frequent flyer.
The day after a primary night stunner in a contest seen as a possible indicator of where big city politics and racial politics are heading in the United States, New York City Mayor Ed Koch failed in his bid for a fourth term. With sizable support from white voters, the Democratic nomination went to David Dinkins, who could become New York City's first black mayor. CBS News correspondent Richard Roth reports on changing politics and changing times.
It was still Ed Koch's City Hall, but as quick as a New York minute, the crowd this morning turned the nation's best-known mayor into a spectator at someone else's show.
You see now how we're bringing New York together.
With a Democratic primary victory that swept the black vote and captured a surprising 1/3 of the ballots cast by whites, David Dinkins, a 62-year-old politician with a reputation for speaking softly, is strongly positioned to become New York's first black mayor. And Ed Koch is becoming history. New Yorkers today were getting adjusted.
it's going to take a while for people to accept the fact that you have a black mayor.
I prefer white, but I would not have any prejudice against black.
They're not looking for colors. They look for a man that can run the city.
Analysts said the city's recent racial tensions helped upset Koch's hope for an unprecedented fourth term. Part of the issue was a perception the mayor has been insensitive to minorities.
New Yorkers got tired of meanness. The appeal of David Dinkins is not that different than the appeal of George Bush. He is a civilized gentleman. He is a kinder, gentler leader.
And another part of the issue was the mayor's famous flamboyance.
Hi, everybody!
The Ed Koch show ran for almost 12 years before New Yorkers said enough.
He is the caricature of New York. And what we did was got tired of a caricature.
Dinkins still faces a potentially tough challenge from Republican nominee Rudolph Giuliani, a former federal prosecutor running as a crime stopper. And whoever is elected faces the biggest challenge of all, the city's non-stop problems of drugs, violence, poverty, and urban decay. Richard Roth, CBS News, New York.
Four-term Detroit Mayor Coleman Young beat 12 rivals in last night's nonpartisan Motor City primary. He now faces accountant Tom Barrow in the November runoff, the same man Coleman beat in the last election. An uncomfortable position today for another veteran big city black mayor, Tom Bradley of Los Angeles. The city attorney's 5-month ethics investigation cited Bradley today for financial disclosure violations. This could result in heavy civil fines, no criminal charges involved. The investigation centered on the mayor's role as a paid advisor to two banks that did business with the city of Los Angeles. President Bush's photo opportunity event today to promote his anti-drug strategy did not go as planned. 13-year-old Shantae Charles, one of the young people invited to the White House Rose Garden today, spoke out against the death penalty, which Mr. Bush favors for some drug criminals.
To me, killing someone that has committed a very serious crime is wrong. It does not solve anything. All it does is takes away someone else's life.
Afterwards, President Bush graciously said he knew it wasn't easy for the students to, quote, say what's on your heart, not worry if people agree with you or not.
Attention shredded wheat eaters, you've been missing something. Taste, but no more. Kellogg's Squares brings you that superlative shredded wheat nutrition with no salt, no fat, no cholesterol. But wait, Kellogg's Squares gives you free in every bite. Taste! Sweet, delectable fruit in the middle. You might never eat plain old shredded wheat again. Kellogg's Squares, shredded wheat with taste, free in every bite. And speaking of taste, now Squares have 35% more raisin. Great taste, free.
To my beautiful wife.
It's nice to know he still loves the way you look. And if you wear dentures, you can count on Effordent to freshen up dentures and clean away stains so well. With Effordent, all he'll notice is you.
How strong is extra strength Tums EX? Heartburn strikes, Tums strikes back. Heartburn's gone that fast. Tums EX, twice as strong, twice as fast as regular Rolaids.
I used pressure-treated lumber, and I still have $800 in water damage. How come?
Even treated wood needs Thompson's Water Seal protection.
This patio was supposed to last for years. Now I have $1,200 in damage. Why?
Your concrete wasn't protected with Thompson's Water Seal. Thompson's penetrates into wood, brick, or concrete to form a barrier water can't get past, even when driven by 98-mile-per-hour winds.
Let it rain. This time I use Thompson's, a great defense against repair expense.
Thompson's, the first name in lasting protection.
Police in Wheatcroft, Kentucky today said a flash fire killed at least 10 miners and injured 3 others in a coal mine. Authorities said it was the nation's worst mine disaster in 5 years. The ignition apparently occurred as a mining machine was being dismantled to be moved at the Pyro Mining Company's Williams Station mine. The great 18th century historian Edward Gibbon said history is little more than the register of the crimes, follies, and misfortunes of mankind. Sounds challenging, doesn't it? But not the way it's written about in today's American high school textbooks. At least that's the verdict in a study released today by the American Federation of Teachers. Terrence Smith tells us about it.
All right, so this period of history, you're dealing with the American Revolution through the Civil War.
America's history students are being shortchanged in their study of the nation's past. A new survey concludes that the history textbooks used by most high school students fail to explain the origins and contentious nature of democracy.
They lack a focus to give students a feeling about what it was to bring democracy to this country and to sustain it.
They aren't awful and they aren't wrong. They're just not strong enough.
The study finds that the texts provide little biographical information about the leaders who shaped the nation. The longest sketch of Abraham Lincoln, for example, is just 6 paragraphs and reveals little about his religious and political beliefs or depth of character.
It wasn't a lot on Lincoln. I remember he got shot.
It also says the books neglect the impact of religion on the country's history and on leaders like the late Martin Luther King. Most texts also fail to explain the significance to society of some of the dark chapters in America's economic history. Teachers complain about what the books don't do.
I think that the Holocaust is a page, and the internment of the Japanese is a page in a history textbook, and that's, in this day and time, that's ridiculous.
They just tell us about things we already knew all of our lives.
The solution means going beyond headlines from the nation's past. Experts argue that text should be expanded and the classroom time devoted to American history at least doubled. The goal is not just more names and dates, but an understanding of how the country came to be what it is today. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington.
Major League Baseball owners meeting in Milwaukee today elected Fay Vincent baseball commissioner. He will succeed A. Bartlett Giamatti, who died of a heart attack less than 2 weeks ago. Fay Vincent has been the deputy commissioner.
You are about to see the most important words in headache and pain relief in 100 years. Motrin IB. No prescription needed. The doctor-recommended pain reliever in Motrin is now available in non-prescription strength Motrin IB. One Motrin IB is as effective as 2 regular-strength Tylenol for relief of pain and gentler on your stomach than aspirin. New Motrin IB. Tablets or caplets. Doctor-recommended pain relief.
Dear Malox, my daughter's dates give me Malox moments.
Hey, I'm here!
Last night was a real doozy. What a Malox moment. My dinner turned to acid. Good thing Extra Strength Malox Plus is so strong. My doctor recommended it, and it's the strongest antacid there is. With teenagers, I need the strongest.
Nice house. Nice earring.
Write us about your Malox moments. Extra Strength Malox Plus. Strong relief for all your Malox moments.
Total Raisin Bran has 4 times the vitamin nutrition of your Raisin Bran. So can you think of one reason not to buy Total Raisin Bran?
I'd buy it in a minute.
You said it.
No, he did.
We interrupt this fill-up
Charge it.
to remind you the Discover card pays you cash back for every charge. Well, we're on our way. It pays to Discover.
As part of our continuing CBS News special coverage of crack and other drugs, our series of reports under the general heading, One Nation Under Siege. Tonight, a look at the punishment end of crime and punishment. It's important to understand why and how the whole criminal justice system is being so overwhelmed. Correspondent Bob Fall has been investigating the vicious circle of drug crime and revolving door justice.
Tell me your name and your age, please.
Emmett Law. Meet Emmett Law and you understand why America's war on drugs is sputtering. Law was charged with possessing enough cocaine to land in a Florida prison for 5 years. Instead, the only jail time he did was 1 night.
In some circumstances, I've been laughed at, you know, right in my face, right after the arrest has been effected.
We need to end up with a system that says if you are convicted of violating the drug laws, there is a swift and sure punishment. Right now, the system we have does not, by any stretch of the imagination, say that.
In America's major cities, more drug dealers are being arrested, but few are spending much time in jail. For example, more than half of drug offenders sentenced this year in New York City got probation or terms of less than 1 year.
If you're a criminal, you say, terrific. All that means is the more of us that commit crimes and the more serious the crimes, the less time we're going to end up serving in the long run because the system refuses to accommodate with increased capacity.
Okay, everybody should be in the area now.
The way the system works or doesn't enrages men in the trenches like Miami Vice Cop Charlie Fernandez, who risk their lives making arrests only to see dealers working the same streets a few hours later.
They know they're not going to get hardly any time. I've had people tell me, like, you know, I've arrested people for selling marijuana, and I've had them actually tell me, hey, I don't care. I know I'm going to be back out on the street tomorrow.
It happens because the criminal justice system is too swamped to properly dispose of all the Emmett Laws who are arrested.
Are you satisfied with the assistance of your attorney in negotiating this matter for you?
Prosecutor David Forestier, for example, staggers under a back-breaking caseload, 250 and growing. He admits that sometimes he has only a few minutes to prepare a case. Sometimes public defenders, like the one appointed for Emmett Law, get even less.
The truth is not really what's important anymore. We compromise that end.
Compromise by whisking Emmett Law through the choke system as quickly as possible so other Emmett Laws can be processed later.
You plead no contest, which means you're not saying you did it, you're not saying you didn't do it. You're just willing to accept whatever the court's willing to give you.
So Emmett Law, who insisted privately that cocaine was not his, cut a deal, accepted a lesser charge, and walked away, having served only the night he was arrested.
He walked off, but he spent the night in jail. For most people, that would be a tremendous punishment.
What happened to him helps everybody. The system gets rid of him. He walks away. The prosecution can claim a partial victory.
I think you got it down pretty well. That's exactly how it works.
Some prosecutors insist the system is tougher than it seems. For example, 44% of drug offenders sentenced this year in New York City have gone to state prison and will serve at least a year and a half.
If we could get longer sentences, you know, I would be for it, but in the scheme of things, these are not insignificant sentences.
All right, please. But the fact that so many end up pleading to lesser counts and end up on probation or with just a few months sends an entirely different message to the streets.
Once it becomes obvious that the punishment doesn't fit the crime, even coming close to it, then you run into that horrible situation where a criminal then decides that the time is worth the crime.
Got these guys down good?
Experts agree the long-term answer is to reduce demand for illegal drugs. The short term is to build more prisons, spend more tax dollars. Until that happens, bottlenecks here will only get worse. And in America's so-called war on drugs, people like Emmett Law will keep getting busted
I accept your no contest plea.
and keep walking away.
Adjudication of guilt, 1 day in jail, $225 court costs. Good luck to you.
Bob Fall, CBS News, Miami.
And that's part of our world tonight. A reminder, tomorrow night, we'll broadcast a special 48 hours, A Return to Crack Street, an examination of the spreading danger of crack and what possibly can be done about it. That's tomorrow night at 8, 7 Central Time. For now, Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, live from Phoenix, the police, the frontline soldiers in the war against drugs.
Also for the kids, Rafi will be here on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on News Channel 5 tonight, 10 miners die, more are hurting in a Kentucky mine accident. Secretary of State Gentry Crowell testifies before the grand jury investigating political corruption and why Metro will need a juvenile court judge and soon. Those stories and a woman taking the just say no fight to the streets of her neighborhood. The 6 o'clock report is next.
It's a Valley sale at Kastner Knott. Save 20 to 30% off every Valley bra and brief. Going on now at Kastner Knott.